This is section number 8, and I'm just going to pick up from my first marriage. My husband was a very nice man. He had two sides to him, like I had many sides to me, but he was very vulnerable. You know, he can be really sweet and very funny, and you know, my church loved him. That church that we went to, where I got my first church, they loved him. My husband could do no wrong. I mean, they loved him so much that when he preaches, it's like the whole, not everybody, but it seemed like everyone to me, like everyone just fall on the floor and tongues everywhere, and people my church loved my husband. They loved him, and I mean, I love him too. I wasn't in love with him, like, you have a dream of who your husband would be, and he wasn't a bad person. I just felt like for where I was, and who I was in terms of, you know, my personality, I just felt he wasn't the best person for me. But when I said I didn't love him, I loved him, but I wasn't like in love with him. Like he wasn't my heart desire. Not because he was handsome. He had a nice body. He was funny. But for me, his hurts and pains were too strong, and I couldn't help him. I guess maybe if we both had different mindset, you know, I wanted to make it work. A relationship has always been my weakness. I've always wanted to be married. So I really, really wanted it to work. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, we can have a baby. And we tried. And I said, for a while, I was like, God, that's not going to work, I was like, no way. Because I was like, we don't even get along. I didn't want a child to be brought up into that home because I was broken and he was broken. So both of us, I felt like we weren't in the right position, and then his finances wasn't where he wanted it to be, and he was trying to work on that. So I didn't want to continue. I learned that it's not good to marry a man that don't make as much money as you, because men have to be the leaders, they have to be the head, and if they're not running the show in every aspect, it makes them vulnerable. And I think that my husband was vulnerable. I think I wasn't the right match for him, but we were even in some ways, because I think I was broken on my aspects of it, and he was broken in his aspect, because I learned that we draw in our life a reflection of who we are. So I can't say that I was better than my husband, because I wasn't. I was just as broken as he was. I was just broken in other areas, and I'm sure it's been like maybe like 13, 14 years. So, life, people change. So I'm just going back to then and how that experience was for me. But, I remember we tried to have a child for like a whole year. We tried, and I kept praying. I said, God, I finally decided, I said, okay, let's have a child, because that's what he wanted. So I said, okay. And I just couldn't get pregnant. I just couldn't get pregnant. And I'm watching other people getting pregnant. I'm like, what the heck? What's wrong with me? I remember that I did have abortion when I was 16. So I said, okay, maybe I messed my body up. So after a while, it was like I kept trying. And I can tell, my husband was being nice. And, after a while, sometimes when he was mad at me, he would make little comments. But overall, I thought maybe because I had the abortion when I was 16 that maybe I messed my body up, So, but I just kept praying about it. I mean, I went to God like daily. I was like, Jesus, one thing with me, I pray. I'm a praying girl because I'm a talking girl. I'm a communicator. So there's a lots of bottles in heaven with Althea in it. Althea's name on it. Trust me. There's like, I think half of heaven full of my name, because I just talk to Jesus so much. I just talk, and I remember one day I was at my job, and we was doing inventory, so I had to like work like a lot of hours. And I remember that I was there by myself because I had to close the store down. And I mean, this store was like an $800 million store, so I couldn't make no mistakes. I had to shut it down correctly, And I used to manage, one of the floors there, and I knew that I didn't feel well. And I knew, I was like, there's a security guard in the building, and there was like, like 8 levels to the store, and it was this, I just couldn't mess up because there was like so much money involved, and I wasn't feeling well, and I just fell on the floor. And if I tell you, just imagine 2 iron metal coming together at the tip and just like making into a V. I felt like someone was taking that iron metal and pushing it all the way in me, all the way in me through my womanhood. I felt like it was. I mean, it was the most one of the most. It was. I mean, I've had a lot of excruciating experiences, but that one for that time took the cake. It was like I thought I was going to die. It was a pain I've never. It's like someone was pushing this V metal thing up in me, and I mean, I literally fell on the floor. I was wearing these high heels. I took the high heels off. I just fell on the floor. And my mom was in Florida. And I remember I was dragged myself to my office. I went into my bag and I called my mother. I said, Mommy, I'm sick. Something's wrong with me, Mommy. I'm in pain. So my mom stayed on the phone with me the whole time. She stayed on the phone with me. And she's like, what's wrong? I didn't know what was wrong with me. All I knew was I felt like I was dying. So I lied on the floor I was talking to my mom for a long time. My mom is good like that. She's always been there for us no matter what. I mean, we have our differences, but, my mom has always been there in every situation. My mom is very straightforward like me, so she's going to tell me when she'll agree with something. But my mom has always been there for me. And, my family's, my sisters, they've always cared. And, we didn't, my older sister's always been there for me in these tough situations, even though I don't think we technically liked each other personally. But I know that because we're blood and there was a love, we had for each other, I guess an unspoken love. But, my family was there. But my mom was on that phone with me. And I don't know if I called my husband. I don't know if I just remember calling my mom. That's what I remember. And I waited like 2 hours on the ground. And the pain subsided. It calmed down. So I was able to get up, lock up my office, lock up the store, and leave. And the next day, I went back to work, and there was this associate that I had to that I was going to fire him, and he was just a kid that I tried so much to help him to be successful, with the job he was doing, and he would just be rebellious. He was just wasn't trying to keep his job. So I rolled him up, and I brought him into my office with the head manager. She was like the group manager. She was like over like 3 or 4 floors. And we brought him into my office, and this kid was there, and I was talking to him. And all of a sudden, it was like my head started spinning and spinning and spinning. I felt nauseous. I felt dizzy. I said, excuse me. I know that kid was happy. He was like, our fear's out. I'm not going to get fired. So that meeting was over. I said, excuse me. And I went outside before, and in the stockroom in New York, I can speak for my stockroom. There was clothing everywhere, $1,000 clothing, $500 skirts. Like, everything was expensive, so you don't really want to damage the merchandise, And I walked up my office, and I just felt dizzy. And honestly, I mean, I felt like I was dying. I just felt like everything was spinning out of control, and all of a sudden, I just went boop, and we had a concrete floor. So I went boop on the concrete floor. I guess I was out for a little minute, and then I woke up, and there was all these people around me, and then my stomach just started enlarging in front of my face, because I had a really flat stomach, and I'm like, right in front of my face, I'm watching my stomach swelling and swelling and swelling and swelling and swelling, and they called the ambulance, and the guy was like, keep your eyes open. He was like, keep your eyes open, just relax, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm just like, I don't know, how you think I'm feeling? And I remember my director, the manager that was over, all of the floors, she was just like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know. I just felt horrible. So I got into the ambulance, and they drove me to the hospital, and then I contacted my husband. Then I told him I was married, and I am telling you, this is after a year and 4 months of being married. And my husband turned into Jesus. That man was like Jesus. I saw the most beautiful man out of that whole year and a half came forth. He was so beautiful. When I called him, as soon as he got an opportunity to come to the hospital, he was there. But I was lying in the hospital for a little while, and all I know was I had my period before that that event took place. So I didn't think I was pregnant. I thought everything was normal. I was I thought everything was normal, and this man was the most beautiful man I've ever seen. And I was lying on that bed in the hospital hallway, waiting for the doctors to come, waiting for my husband to come. And I remember the tampon. I'm sorry, you guys. I know it's a little graphic, but I had a tampon inside of me, and all I'm thinking is like, Althea, you gotta get this tampon out of you. But my body just shut down, and my body is very strong. My body has its own will, and I was trying. So my manager came with me, and I told her that I have a tampon in, and I have to get it out. And I just felt my body just locked down on it. I mean, every muscle that I had in my whole body just shut down my wound and shut down every aspect of me. And I couldn't get that tampon for half an hour. You know what it feels like to be in pain and try at the same time to pull this tampon out. And I eventually got it out, and it was like a relief, but the pain was horrible. I remember that when the doctor came, my husband wasn't there yet, and the doctor came, and they was like, okay, we're going to see you, you know, we're going to take you to this room. And there was, I don't know what you call this procedure, and all the nurses, they all know. They took this tube, this long little tiny hose, and the man said he's going to push it into my kidneys, so I don't have to use the bathroom, so I can use the bathroom through, I guess the tube will pull the urine out of it, you know. But they were setting me up for surgery, I guess. But they didn't know if I was going to surgery. They just knew that whatever I was going through, that they had to find out what it was. And then that man, I mean, I cried. It was so painful. He had to push this tube all the way through my woman and canal and all the way up, and I felt every bit of it. I mean, I felt like I was gonna like faint 1,000 times one, but he's like, stay awake, stay up. I was like, please doctor, please doctor, please doctor, please don't, please doctor, pull it out, pull it out, pull it out. It was horrible. I just feel pain so much, so intensely. I feel if an ant crawl on my leg, I feel it. Some people, they can have an ant on their leg, a fly on their nose, a fly on their leg, and they don't even feel, I feel everything. I mean, anything, I'm so sensitive to those things, and that's why pain for me was so much more excruciating, because I just have a very sensitive spirit. So eventually my husband, they got the tube in. It was horrible, but they got the tube in, and then my husband came, and the doctor came in, and he was just taking this computer, and he was looking around in my stomach with the computer and looking around my stomach, and then he's like, I guess he saw something. He was like, hold 1 minute. Okay, I'll be right back. So he rushed out the hospital room. In like 10 minutes, he came back with like 20 doctors. 20 doctors. And he was like, ma'am, we need to talk to you about something. I said, okay. And he was talking to me, my husband. And he says, you know, you're pregnant. When he said you're pregnant, I felt like heaven just came over me in that moment. I felt a joy that I can't explain it, like the ultimate mother joy. You know how you feel after you have your baby and you just get that joy that replaces all the pain? That's how I felt in that moment. But he said, you're not pregnant. You're pregnant, but you're not pregnant. So all I heard was you're pregnant, and it took him a couple seconds to answer the other part that you're not pregnant. He says you were pregnant, but the egg is caught in the fallopian tube, and the egg is just burst and damaged your fallopian tube, and now your body is filled with poisonous blood. He said your whole body. He said, ma'am, you're supposed to be dead 3 days ago. He said it's impossible that you're alive. You know, I mean, and you look. I'm looking at you, and you look normal. He said you're supposed to turn blue right now. He said because your body is filled with poisonous blood. And he said we have to go in surgery. So he had my husband leave the office, and they just start, you know, everyone start preparing me. And then all I know, it was like they were in a hurry. They was like, we have to go, we have to go. So they just put me on a stretcher. It was like 20 doctors around me, chasing me through, you know, this hospital. It was a very big hospital because I had really good medical coverage. So I had it was one of the best hospitals in New York. So thank you, Jesus. I got really lucky. And all I know, it was like they put this plastic thing over my face and say, breathe, man, breathe, breathe, breathe. And eventually of my breathing, but you know what? The whole time I was on that stretcher, Jesus was there. I felt him. I just felt this joy. I just felt this peace. Even when the man told me I had a baby, I thought God was telling me I was going to have another baby because the joy I felt it was like I felt like God was saying, "You're gonna have another child," because it was just beautiful. I mean, driving, being pushed down the hospital corridor. God was with me. I felt His presence. I wasn't scared or nothing. Let that happen to me now, and I don't know, because I have a lot of fears now, but because of all I've been through. But then I wasn't crushed enough to have fear, so I really didn't have any fear. But God was with me. His presence was with me, and all I remember was just zoning out, just falling asleep. And when I woke up, there was like, it seemed like 30 tubes coming up my body. There was tube all over my face, all over my neck, all over my arm. There's like tube here, tube here, tube. And they told me they gave me a blood transfusion. They took the old blood out, the damaged blood, and gave me new blood. Don't ask me how they did that without me dying, but they did it. And all I had down there was a cut. And it was a little, yeah, the cut was kind of big down there, and it was stapled up, and I was puffy. My husband, when he came to see me, he said he looked like a fat Chinese woman. He started laughing at me. He felt sorry for me. I was swollen. Because it was like, I mean, they gave me a whole body worth of new blood. So my face was swollen, and that was a good moment. To some people that would have been a bad experience. It was good for me because I saw my husband. He was so beautiful. I saw the vision of him that God saw. I saw this beautiful man. He was coming to see me every day. He was bringing me food, and then the young people at church was coming to see me, and they were making a lot of noise, and they was causing a lot of problems in the hospital. But it was fun. They was telling a lot of jokes, and my husband was just beautiful. He was just, I was in awe. I fell in love with him that day. That time I was in the hospital, I literally fell in love with my husband. I saw the most beautiful, caring, sweet man. I mean, he turned into Jesus, and I was just like, wow. I fell in love with him. I did. I just forgot all about everything that went wrong, and I just took him for where he was, and he was so good to me. He never yelled. He never got mad. He was just like a servant. Like, you need something? You're right. Every day he would call me. He would bring clothes to the hospital. I was in the hospital for like a good month, but I was just dying to get out because I wanted to go to church. I wanted to go to church and worship. I wanted to go to church and be in the choir. I just wanted to go to church. I just wanted to be where church was. But I had to stay in the hospital for a while, and I got a lot of love, and I thank God for that experience. And I remember even before then, me and my husband had a car accident, and I mean, we almost died. We crashed the car driving like we're going towards church, and my husband was talking to me, and I guess it was the moment he looked at me when he was talking, and there was a big collision with like 3 or 4 or 5 cars, and our car was so bad that it looked like we were dead. But me and him, neither one of us was hurt. Neither one of us was hurt. I banged my head on the windshield, but I had so much faith then. My faith was just intact, so I felt nothing. And, they were work. I mean, we went to church and had church. People were shocked. I mean, if you saw a car, you would think that we were dead. Our car spin over, and I mean, the front of it got crushed all the way up until it almost touched us, but we were fine. So me and my husband we went through a lot. I remember when I bought another car, and I crashed that car because my husband was teaching me how to drive, and he was so aggressive and so rough. And I don't do well with aggressiveness. I don't do well with roughness. And my husband, he had no patience, and he literally, I drove the car up on the sidewalk because he was scaring me. I was like, just talk calm. You don't have to yell at me. Just talk calm. Just relax. Just tell me what to do. But he didn't have that in him. And we crashed the car, and both of us was in the car. So, so many times I saw how God saved my life. And, I thank God for keeping me, But I know that I was in the hospital. My husband was so beautiful. And I came home in like the end of December. And I'm telling you, I was still sick. I still wasn't healed. I remember me and my husband got in an argument, and he told me I was Enoch. I don't know. I think that meant like I can't have kids, and that hurt me when he said that. But I fell in love with him from the hospital visit. So I was now saying, God, this is gonna work. This is gonna work out. I can make this happen. But we went through a lot. I remember just even in our church, we went through a lot. I mean, what I think God was using my husband to do, He was allowing my husband to do. My husband was exposing me. because now our business was in the church, and I was very private. I was very private. You won't know nothing is wrong just by looking at me. If you knew anything was wrong, you would have to speak to my husband, because you wasn't getting it from me, because I was like, want everything to be pretty girl, and I remember that, me and my husband, we got into a lot of problems, and people in the church was finding out, and I was just embarrassed. I just felt like God would just pop in my bubble, one by one, pop in my bubble, because now the church knew everything, and I was never in a closed knit environment like that. I was always been in an environment where I was, in fashion business, I was respected, and people loved me, and Caucasian people loved me, and I was just used to love in the fashion business. That's what, the people loved me. I got any position I wanted, any money I wanted. I was even manipulative in getting more money, because if you leave, I used to stay at a company for 2 years, and then when you leave a company, you have to tell them if you were making 50, you got to tell them you were making 60, so they can give you 70. So there was a lot of manipulation, and I was, I was trying to be a millionaire, so I was doing whatever it takes to get rich, okay? So, but I was loved. So when I went to this church, it was just different, because people were, like, kind of remind me of growing up. Everybody was so critical of me, like everything I did wrong. Like my friends, they didn't hold back. They were just telling Althea what was wrong with her. And likewise myself, I was arguing back with them, but I loved my friends in my first church. I loved them. I felt like I was connected to them. But I know God did it, for me to love them and feel at home. I felt like that was my home. I never thought I would ever leave that church. Never. Even though I wasn't in agreement with a lot of things, and I wanted them to be more advanced and be more business oriented. But I loved my group of friends, and I loved some of the people, not all of the people, because I really never felt like it was my home, because I guess there's other people who didn't like me, but in my mind I was just trying to pursue Jesus. I was trying to do God's will. And I felt like my salvation started before I got to that church. So it was just like God sent me there, and I guess because I just showed up, some people just never fully connected. But I was also different. I was different, and I'm telling you, from I got saved, I met people with personalities that I never encountered before. So it was like hard for me, because I was meeting all these people, and they were so different, and they didn't like Althea. I wasn't the cream of the crop no more, like everything I was that the world celebrated. The church didn't celebrate me. The world celebrated me. They loved me, but I didn't get that from the church. I didn't feel loved. I felt like my little group liked me, but overall I felt misunderstood. I felt people judged me by what my husband was saying, and they just had their views of me, but they didn't know me. They really didn't know me. And like I said, all that experience was so shocking to me, because this was all new. It wasn't a relaxed environment for me. It was just like God was on the job. God is truth, and when you get saved, especially if He had like a certain purpose for your life, He was just dealing with our fear issue, and He knows image was my big thing. And believe me, my husband cracked my image button, my image balloon. He cracked it. I was now crying all the time. My husband had arguments. I would cry. I remember before my husband backslid, me and him was driving, and he broke down to me, and he says, no matter what happened, don't leave me. I'm sorry about everything, because he had people hate me. He had my sister mad at me. He had my friends mad at me. He made everybody think I was the wickedest person. And I was just like, and because I guess I didn't, if you had issues against me, my husband would you just been on his bandwagon, and people just believed in him. They believed everything he told them, and I felt vulnerable. I felt like God wasn't like having my back. Like, why wasn't God telling them that I really wasn't like what He was saying? But that Sunday, my husband told me, he says, I'm sorry for everything I've done to you. And he said, promise me you never let me go, no matter what, no matter how far I go, no matter how much I mess up. So he was struggling with his salvation. I guess he wanted to be good for God, and he wanted to be the person that the church expected him to be, this big preacher guy, but he was struggling. But he told me, and this was like maybe two weeks before my husband backslid, and he used to wrestle at the altar. I used to watch him wrestling, because he knew and I knew that I really wasn't doing the things that it was being projected. But I was getting mad. I was getting pissed off. I would cuss them out before people because I've always been that keep it real type of girl, and I was just like, look, this is too much. It was like I was being crushed by everything. It was just like everyone's my business. Everybody had their opinion about me. People were just being so critical. It was like growing up to the 15th power. Now I have like 300 people, 350 people in my world, and I couldn't get rid of them, and I had to submit because God sent me there. And I had a lot of great times, but then the crushing was really a lot. It was just everyone eyes on me. I wasn't used to that closed church world, and I hated it. I loved church, but I hated that all these people around me and everybody had an opinion on me. And it was like we're supposed to be brothers and sisters. I was like, I don't want to be brothers and sisters. Yeah, I didn't feel connected to a lot of the people. The only people I felt connected to was the young people. It was like a small group. And, you know, there was a lot of drama going on with that group in terms of we used to argue, but we had a lot of fun too. But it was just a huge transition. But I know that, you know, a month home from the hospital, I guess me and my husband got into an argument, and I wanted to go to church, and he said he ain't coming. He ain't coming. He's not coming, you know. And I love church, so I went to church every Sunday. You know, I mean, the only time I didn't go to church was when maybe one Sunday or two Sunday when I was sick. But I loved church. And I went to church, and one of the deacons asked me where my husband was. And I said, he's just not here. I didn't want to tell him everything. I was so embarrassed because already I guess he was talking to this man about what I was, you know, what he was going through. I mean, everyone have their story. And I really don't have a problem with people expressing what they were experiencing because, you know, I have my story and they have their story, and I have to respect their story. And, you know, I guess based on my husband, I was a nightmare for him. So, and then he thinks I was dating that guy, or I like that guy. I mean, I liked him as a friend. I liked him. I started to like him like more now towards like, I started to like him maybe like half an hour after my husband left me. 6 months after my husband left me. That's when I started to have feelings, because now it was like a hole in my soul. But before that, he was just a friend, because I always got along with people, you know. I mean, in terms of people that was similar to me or in the fashion business, I got along with a lot of people. So he just had a personality that I got along with. But I didn't like him. Like, I wasn't attracted to him. He really wasn't my type per se. But his personality, I thought, was a very beautiful person. And it was a breath of fresh air for me, because me and my husband was always arguing. So I guess I did something. So my husband didn't want to go to church. But my husband also used to hang out with like all his unsafe friends. And I used to say, why you go hanging out with those people? I mean, all they're doing is stuff that was wrong. My husband would disappear, you know, and I knew he went back to where he came from, you know, from Brooklyn, and he was hanging out with the wrong people. And I used to argue with him. I used to be like, come on, let's go fasting, let's pray. You know, I used to cry all the time. I mean, I cried all the time. I was just like, I guess I just wanted the marriage to work. You know, I wanted everything to work out. I didn't want the church to see my life not working out. And it was a lot of pressure. It was to conform, to project an image that wasn't truthful. I mean, I had my image to uphold, and that alone was like, I'm not going to make this brother bring me down, you know. So I try to hold it together. But my husband was not trying to make it pretty. He was not trying to keep it pretty. He was just exposing me. I just looked at all of it that it was God's hand, because God was like, I got to deal with Althea's issues. So he just allowed my husband to do his thing. You know, I think it was all a setup, you know, just to really deal with me and my issues. But my husband didn't come to church. And everyone knew that was like, he's been like missing from church every couple of Sundays. Anytime we argue, he just gets missing from church. You know, or he would just leave me on the train by myself, and he'll go way ahead of me. So I'd be on the train with him, but he'll be like 5 cars ahead of me, because we were like, my church was in Queens and we were in Manhattan, so we had to take like 3 trains to go to church. You know, it was like a 2-hour ride. You know, I must have loved Jesus to go that kind of distance to go to church, because, you know, I mean, people really would take 20 minutes or half an hour to go to church, but for us, it was like 3 train rides, and in between cars, we had to take the train. So that last Sunday, when I got home, my husband, when I walked in the house, he was sitting on the bed, and he turned around. And my husband has really beautiful skin, and it was glowing. It was always glowing. But that day when I got home, it was not glowing anymore. I'll be honest with you, I'm not trying to, I just saw death. I'm not saying I just saw, like, I mean, I don't want to say it because I don't want to offend, but I knew he no longer was going to walk with God. I knew it. I just looked at him and I saw it. I knew that he no longer was going to walk with God. So now I'm like, I probably was selfish because I'm thinking about now I'm single. Now I won't have no baby. And then my church didn't believe in divorce. And then now everybody's going to know, my husband is leaving me. And all of that stuff was just like, I mean, and my husband told me, he said, you'll never get married. He told me that night, you will never get married as long as I'm alive. He probably don't remember it, but I remember it. He was like, as long as I'm alive, you will never get married again. And that put fear upon me because all I ever wanted was to be married. I was like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life alone. All I saw was myself getting old, not having no kids. Who would have known, now 13, 14 years later, I'm still single, not married. But, I mean, that was my fear. And I've pretty much lived my whole fear. No kids, no husband. Everybody say you have Jesus. Yeah, I have Jesus now. I'm happy now. I'm good now. But then it was like the thought of being single was a nightmare to me. It was just like I couldn't conceive it. It overwhelmed me. And everyone found out that my husband no longer wanted to come to church, and I was to blame for it all. My husband blamed me for everything. My husband blamed me. He blamed me so bad, he had deacons not speak to me. His family wasn't really speaking to me. Everybody was mad at Althea. Everyone was mad at Althea. Everybody was mad at Althea. And then Althea had to deal with her own issue. I mean, I had a ball in my belly for like a year. And that's when I started getting close to this guy because I started started really getting close. Like I was telling him and he was there for me. And, he used to be like, Althea, but he was like, oh, you have no reason to be mad. He kind of blew me off, but I didn't have nobody else. He used to work with me, and my husband left me, and then the church was mad at me, and everybody had their comments and statements, and people were malicing me, and I was dying, and I felt like nobody was really thinking about what I was experiencing, and I just felt like everybody was just like mad at me because he backslid, and I was blamed for it. I was blamed. I mean, I was preached on, talked about, name it, claim it. Whole Brooklyn knew it. I mean, my husband was he was just mad at me. He was just like, I'm gonna bring this chick down. And it hurt me. And I remember times calling him at work, and he was just like, I mean, he was dissing me. I was begging him to take me back. And he would tell the guys, because, what he did for, where he worked, he was like, y'all want her? Y'all want her? I don't want her. I used to be on the phone bawling. Why? Because I wanted to keep my image intact. He was kind of ruining my whole, I'm married now, and my mama told me not to marry him, so he was just ruining everything. I mean, my whole life was just being exposed. I just wanted everything to come together, and it never did. I mean, it took a year for me to get over my husband. After a year, God delivered me from him, and I remember asking God, what the heck, Jesus, is going on? What all this drama over my life? What is all this stuff happening? Why are people always so mad at me? Why I can't make nobody happy? Why it's so easy for people to be mad at me? I just couldn't understand it. I was like, even my friends were mad at me. I mean, I was just like, what the? I mean, everything was just falling apart. And I was like, God, what did I do? Like, I said, God, I cried out to God. I was like, Jesus, what's wrong with me, God? Why? What does people want from me? I didn't know what people wanted. I didn't know who I was. And then God, it took a while, it took a while for God to reveal to me, who I was in Him, and, but it was just so much. It was just so much. But you know what? It didn't break me though. It took another 2 years for me to be really broken. It was a lot of pressure, and I just kept coming to church, and I held my head up, and there's times I would break and fall on the ground, and I was just bawling, and there was some church sisters that were there for me, and some young people that were there for me too, and snot was coming out my nose, and it wasn't even more about my husband, it was just everything. It was like, God, I obeyed you. I did what you wanted me to do, and look at what's happening. Everything that I feared has come upon me, Lord, and everything was just a mess, and people were mad at me, and I wanted to tell my story. I wanted them to ask me what happened, but they just loved my husband so much that anything he told them, they believed it. Anything he told them, they believed it. But it was okay. I survived it. I survived it. I kept pushing. I kept persevering. Everything was blamed on me. And I just kept asking God, why? Why do I feel like I'm carrying the world on my shoulder? Why do I feel like everybody, people who I thought was greater than me, people who I thought was supposed to be my leaders, like, I feel like I was carrying all their weights. I feel like I was carrying everyone's weight on my shoulder. Like, people expected so much of me. I didn't understand why. You understand? I just didn't understand why. But I remember one day God told me that He has a purpose for me, a ministry for me. And He just told me, He said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. This was like after He delivered me from the pain of my husband. He said, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And I kept hearing that. I remember one day I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I used to listen to radio all the time. So I used to listen to the radio all the time. And one morning I woke up and God just spoke to me. He said, Althea, you are a mess. You have a lot of issues. And when God started listing my issues, I'm telling you, it felt like it was like 300. I thought I had like 5 or 6. But by the time God was done, it seemed like it was like 200 issues. And He's like, I'm going to use you, and millions of people's life is going to get saved, or people's life is going to be influenced. And, I mean, He was telling me, but He wasn't telling me everything. He would just let me know that, you have a purpose. There's a call on your life. And I'm going to use you. And, this is why everything is happening. But He didn't really give me details. He would just let me know. And it brought a little comfort. But He said, but you need to seek first the kingdom of God and all His righteousness and everything you desire. I wanted to be married. I wanted to be successful. I wanted, I had a lot of dreams. And He said, everything you desire, I will give to you. So I'm going to end the book right here and then we're going to go after that. We're going to talk about, after the real break-in, because that wasn't the real break-in. Because I'm going to tell you, a year, not even a full year after that whole year, it's like my husband left me, and I know I'm supposed to stop talking, but my husband left me, and then I was always so popular in the fashion business, but the manager that loved me, she got moved, and then another manager that me and her was on the same level, that me and her had the same position, she got promoted over me. And this girl just turned on me. She was my worst nightmare. I was like, so I was going through, my husband separating, the church, and people talking about me, and me feeling being misunderstood. And then at my job, everything just started turning. The fashion business no longer loved Althea. This lady was she was not my boss. And I was like, it is not good to have someone who used to work on the same level with be over you, because now they have something to prove. Because everyone thought that I should have gotten the position, but because she was there longer, she got the position. So maybe she had to prove that she was better than me. I don't know, because I don't know what she was hearing, but I know that everyone said that I should have gotten that promotion. But I was only there for like a year, so I really didn't expect to get, the director's position. I really didn't. So I mean, people were saying it, but I really didn't. I didn't, But I had my own dreams, and I wanted to travel all over the world. I wanted to get into another level of fashion. So, I wanted to be promoted, but not in that area. I want to go into the buying office, because then you can go to Milan and Italy and Paris and travel all over the world. And I wanted to be like a fashion consultant and advisor for the magazines. So I had my own dreams. So the direction she was going in really wasn't my dream. So I really didn't have to have a position, but I had a dream to get a position. But she not liking me and trying to make things bad for me for years, I didn't have no problems. But, I got saved, and everything was just falling apart. My beautiful world was just falling apart. It was falling apart. So we'll pick up on when God really came and really told me the plans He had for my life. And that's when the real breaking started. I know, you're thinking, that's enough, girl. I know, that's what I said. But, God said He don't give us more than we're able to bear. And I can debate that scripture honestly because I felt like I couldn't bear any of it. I felt like I was so overwhelmed, and who would have known I would have lived another 13, 14 years of torture? Who would have known? I wouldn't have known it. I didn't think I could survive all the things that God would allow me to go through, and I really didn't think I could survive it. But I'm still here, 2013. I'm a little older now, and I'm still single with no kids. I mean, there's someone in my life, but not important. But what I'm saying is that there's no ring on my finger. So, and it's not important. I just want to fulfill my purpose. I'm a little scared because my journey with God has just always been so overwhelming in terms of, what He's revealing to me, the things He let me walk through. Even now, just talking about my book, I just pray that I don't offend no one. I pray that no one is, that it doesn't turn. You know what I'm saying? I said, God, just let peace reign over everything because, I just want to fulfill my purpose, and I know I have to do this book, and um, I know there's a lot of people who are going to read it, and they're going to go through these circumstances and situations, and they're going to know that if Miss Althea survived it, I survived it, and they'll be encouraged because I failed a lot in church. I fell short. I mean, I even fornicated while I was in church. I did. I sure did. I'm not a part of it, and I wish I could do my life over again, but it's just was so much for me. I wanted to be perfect, and the more I try to be perfect, the worse my life got. The more I try to be perfect, the worse my life got. The more I pray, the worse my life got. The more I fast, the worse my life got. The more I read my Bible, the worse my life got. It was just, I was like, God, what do you want from me? But He wants wholeness. Wholeness is what He wants. But there is an end, okay? There is a season when all that comes to an end. I mean, you can always go through, but there's a peace to the children of God, and there's a rest. And I feel like I'm in my season of rest right now. So I just thank Him. All right? So we'll talk on my next section. All right. Thank you for listening. Bye.